where I think really people took notice of you, where I know a lot of people were like, did you see her? Did you see her? BESHARAM. I'm going to bring that up. I know you probably talked about that a lot, but I think that is a movie that really made other people notice you. I'm just saying that from an outsider's perspective. Like, I remember you had quite a lot of promotional push behind you. Tell me about that film though. Like, when you got that film or heard about it, why did you kind of pursue that?
Well, first of all, when you're offered a role opposite Ranbir Kapoor, who at the time had got like two film fairs, he was at the top of his game. You don't say no, okay?
Of course.
like what? That was the biggest opportunity that had ever been presented to me. So to say no would have been daft. I had actually been offered another film that year, which was an indie film, and I had to choose between the two. And I actually was like, "Oh, which one should I do?" And both directors were like, "No, no, you need to do this film." It was an interesting experience, because I think if I had have gotten Besharam much earlier, or a film like Besharam much earlier, I think it would have been much better for my mental health, because I wouldn't have gone through kind of that really, really deep underbelly of Bollywood before getting there. And when you've been through that, to then be in a space where you're pitted as an equal with these very big stars, it kind of is difficult because you've got a lot of trauma already from the rooms you've been in, the auditions you've done, the kind of things people have said to you. And you're in that room and you're like, no one understands where I'm coming from now. If I had come off the plane from Australia, actually, it wouldn't have been very different because, I would still have had my foreign privilege and all of those things. And I can manage in any situation. But I had seen a side of Bombay and India where I had stripped all of that privilege away. Like I was lining up in the backlot auditions of Andheri with thousands of people. And that is a pretty traumatic experience, and you really value what you're doing after that. But there was I guess, and this is like probably the most candid I've ever been about it. I loved the film. I love dancing. You know that about me. That's my first love, and the film was a musical number. So I was like, yes, I'm very filmy. Like I love that stuff. Um, but from an emotional point of view, I think that navigation was really tough because I really had no one that understood that. From what I know, there aren't many people that make that transition.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very easy to do that, and I was denigrated in the way, and I was shamed in the way that women are. People would say things in the press like she got the role because she dated her director, and all of these nonsensical things. And actually, the heartbreak of that at the time, again, being really young and so optimistic, and a woman who was following her dreams, so you can imagine how fragile that is. To have those things said about you, it kind of took over from the narrative of me actually fulfilling my dream. And that, for me, unfortunately, is a big part of my experience of Bisharam. Um, and it's probably why I don't talk too much about the film. It was the 7-year anniversary recently of its release, and I cried. It was a really tough time for me. Um, and people don't really check in to see how that girl's doing. The most vulnerable people get the least check in. So it's made me very, very strong, and equipped me to handle anything on any set. And I mean, the gamut of sets that I worked on, from indie films to, like, I can handle anything basically, which is great. And yeah, I guess that's kind of, you get my drift.
BESHARAM was seen as a failure at the box office. And I feel like when a film flops in Bollywood, they end up blaming the cast, even though they have nothing to do with the storyline or the production or whatever. And knowing that you were the leading lady, I kind of felt like sometimes the media wasn't fair to you. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I just wanted to ask you, do you feel like Bollywood has been fair to you?
Definitely wasn't at that time. It definitely was horrendous to go through that.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever spoken about this, and it's actually tearing me up. But I was haunted by it for many years. I still get haunted by it. It was horrible. to wake up in the morning and see absolute nonsense written about me. And, you know, my health was really bad because of the stress. And I was alone, you know, and I think they took advantage of that I didn't have anyone. And no one checked in, you know, no one from the cast, from whatever, like, it doesn't matter. Like, and that I was so lucky I'd started my next film by then, Hamlai Zada, with Ayushmann Khurrana, because I literally, I think the biggest blessing from me, from the universe, was that I wrapped BESHARAM on September 6th and I started shooting for Havai Zada September 7th. And then in between I did the promo tour for BESHARAM and it released in October. But I came back going, when it didn't do well, I just let go. I was like, cool. But I had to then deal with that aftermath, you know, and the media was, it was like a campaign to slander me. It wasn't unfair. It was like harsh. Like people that knew me were like, whoa. And then people that didn't know me were like, oh, there's that girl that we read. You know what I mean? Like, so then what that does to your person, when you have spent so much time working with integrity, like I got BESHARAM after 4-5 audition rounds, you know, and the reason, and people are like, why did a new girl get the film? It's simple, because when a new girl is on set, she's the weakest link and she will give her dates. She will be the person, you know what I mean? Like it's easier for a production, quite frankly. They don't need a fourth big star. So I was like, there's a logic to this, guys. But I had luckily, in a sense, already experienced failure in that industry. None of the films I'd been a part of before that had succeeded. So I'd always, and then I had never let it affect, it had never affected me personally before, I guess. I had always appreciated being a working actor. But yeah, I think the misogyny and the slander was something that I think as a really young woman, I don't wish upon anyone, because it can really shatter you.
I think these things that I, as an outsider, have seen have made me respect you. Because I know, even though I wasn't there with you, because my journey I'm in the industry, right? I, have tried it. I felt for you at that time. And for you to, like, I just always feel like, people see the glitz and glam of any of our jobs. They don't see the dark side, or the times when everybody was like, well, you sucked. And you're like, but I don't suck. Do you not look at everybody else, right? I mean, I get it too. I mean, if my interview bombs, people are not going to blame anyone else but me, right? So I always like to bring that up, because I think this business, you have to be tough. And a lot of people try to be in this business, they don't survive because they just can't handle it. So for you to 10 years later still be in this industry, I am very proud of you. I know it's not easy, but I'm very proud of you. So you should be proud of yourself too for that. Let's move on from BESHARAM. So
before I start like tearing my hair out.
No, but I think it's important to hear that from people. I think, especially because I am in the business, I know.
And I think vulnerability is something that we have not in this industry been taught to wear on our sleeve. It's very much, and I think that was always my undoing, actually. It's like referring to what I was saying earlier. I didn't explain it well, but the idea of projection of power, it's kind of linked to that idea of how you have to come across as unstoppable, unscathable, all of those things. But I was always like, yo, I'm a normal girl from the suburbs of Melbourne. And I've really worn that identity on my sleeve because of girls like you and me, because of girls, the thousands and millions of Indian girls around the world who have not grown up in India and who have already faced trauma being a brown girl growing up in the world. So it's actually unnatural for me to walk in and be like, yo, what's up? I'm so cool. It's like, no, I'm not so cool. I had a monobrow at school and was beaten up. Like, I wasn't the cool kid in the room. I was the nerd and the loser. So for me to all of a sudden try and be like, I'm the greatest person in the room, it was such an unnatural way of behavior to me. And but it also opened me up to, feeling a lot when things were not going well. And I think now it's made me, has given me a wealth of emotional kind of reach when it comes to the work that I do. but it's also made me realize the importance of speaking about this stuff and being vulnerable. I mean, I wish that was more encouraged when I was younger. Unfortunately, when I was younger, to show that side, because I used to believe in human empathy, and I'd be like, okay, someone will want to be nice. I realized that actually that's the time that people are the most exploitative. So for me, it's going, okay, how do we, in our generation, create an example where vulnerability is okay, and there will be empathetic mentorship from the likes of you and myself.
I always like to make sure people know this, that it's not just with you. It happens to all of us, but you got to be tough. Like, no one else is going to help you get through that but yourself. So that's why I bring this up. But I want to move on to better things. Okay, so let's do that. While you were doing Indian cinema, you were also kind of going back and forth with